those at Drunk Dividends on X. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you for
invitation.
having us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Tom wasn't able to make it this morning. He did have something come up. It would have been nice to get the American perspective. Obviously, all three of us are here in Canada, but I'm sure we will still have a very lively discussion. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I was thinking I could just say the word Brookfield and let Anthony go on a 10-minute rant.
10 minutes?
I don't know about 10 minutes, but well,
Okay,
I mean,
15 or 20. I don't know.
I was gonna say
no,
long.
no.
Yeah, I was gonna say longer.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess, latest update. The big one is, and I don't mean to get political, right? But Mark Carney, obviously a very huge figure in Brookfield, just resigned to join the race to be Canadian Prime Minister. And so they appointed Bruce Flatt, who was already Brookfield CEO. He took Mark Carney's job as chair now of Brookfield Asset Management. So in terms of their strategy, I don't think much will change, just because, even though Mark Carney was the face of it, there's like thousands of people there that are, doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. And I think he laid a good foundation for them to continue on. So, if people were wondering about their strategy regarding Brookfield Renewable and the asset manager itself, I'm personally, I'm sad that he's leaving, just because I think he was good for that job, but I expect their results to be the same in the grand scheme of things, which is good.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was interesting. So Mark Carney, obviously he's an educated man. I think, went to Harvard and wherever else.
Yes.
I don't know if you caught him on the Daily Show. I think it was earlier this week, last Monday.
Yep.
But I was like, oh, he's a better comedian than he is an economist. He was actually pretty funny and entertaining with Jon Stewart there on the Daily Show.
Yes, he was. I still, because you guys know how the sentiment is in Canada now, right? It's like, regardless of how great a candidate he could be, and personally, I think he would actually be a great prime minister. Like, he really knows his stuff, but it's just the party that he wants to run as part of. It's very unlikely, right? And I'm not saying this in a partisan way. It's just, looking at the polls and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, exactly. They're going to get decimated in the next election.
Yeah, I think we got 8 years of Poliver here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So I mean, I guess it was like a final a checklist, because he's done everything in his professional life. Like, I mean, he was, Goldman Sachs for many years, then governor of Bank of Canada. Then he was the only non-British to be invited to be governor of Bank of England because of how good he was. That's a big deal, right? Then chair of Brookfield Asset Management and head of transition investing. So he's done like everything you could imagine, and PhD in economics at Oxford, right? So, at this point, he's like, all right, now let me do the last thing on my list, which is, public service. So I get it. But yeah, the timing of it, perhaps it would have been nice if he'd stayed a little longer at Brookfield, but it's okay. It happens.
Well, and assuming he wins the Liberal nomination to be the leader of the Liberal Party, he will be prime minister for 25 seconds, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
For
a few weeks. Yeah. Anyway, that's my Brookfield update. I think the business is still in very good shape. I get one last thing I can add to that is, and I made a little tweet thread about it, but Brookfield Renewable right now is looking quite interesting, I think. So it's near the top of my potential ads list. This is a type of stock I don't like to trade, but I think, an interesting trade here would be just buying under $30 and selling over 35, because it kind of keeps doing that. Not financial advice.
Yeah, swing trading, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, swing trading to me is a lot more attractive than day trading. Like, day trading, you're real, crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Whereas a swing trade, you can kind of watch the pattern over a week or two or a month or 2 months or 3 months and be like, okay, I can buy this at 29 and sell it at 35, buy it back at 28, resell it at 34, and just keep going in that pattern, right?
Exactly.
And especially if it's a company that you don't mind owning, then it's like, you can just, if it doesn't ever hit that sell number, you can just hold on to it, especially if it is a dividend or anything.
Yep. Exactly. So, and it trades at a really pretty attractive valuation now relative to, any time in the last 5 years. So, might be worth looking at. But yeah.
Okay, well, to get into the meat of today's conversation, I know that you have kind of something going on that you can't say much about yet, but okay, so business number one is the winery, obviously. Business number two is the stampery.
Yes.
And business number 3, I'm assuming it's another business, and I know that you really can't say probably. Yeah, you're like, oh, we'll see.
I don't know. It could be. I don't know. Historically I have. Yeah, so affectionately on X, I call my businesses by numbers just because I think it's funny more so. And also people that are like casual viewers of me, I can kind of be like just business number 1, business number 2. So I'm often like, today I'm at business number 1 for this many hours, and then business number 2. So yeah, the winery that I founded is business number 1 and will remain business number 1 in my heart forever. And then, yes, I acquired a manufacturer of rubber stamps, which I call a stampery. And I think Dave is the only other person in the world that like we caught that on, and then no one else calls it that, but me and him call it a stampery.
It seems to make sense to me. Like, what else would you call it?
Yeah, I definitely invented that word, and my business partner's like, that's stupid. I'm like, oh, well, it's a stampery now. Yeah, so I do both of those full time. And then drink for the other 4 hours a day that I have free. But yes, I have
instead of sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. So I have what I've been calling secret project number 1 on the go. I've been documenting everything so that I can do a nice big thread with all the details. I want to see.
I love your threads.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yes.
So first, when was this picture taken? November the 7th of last year was the first day that we kind of started seriously working on this. I think I had tweeted a little bit before that when it was kind of like a possibility kind of thing, but and then I said like I'm tweeting this just so I can bookmark the date, so I can retweet it and you can see the actual timeline. But yeah, it got more serious this year, like in early January. I had like actual meetings with the lawyers and the accountants and whatnot, and putting stuff in writing and whatnot. So we're about 55 days from launch or close, or I don't know what it is. It could be
of an
whatever,
actual announcement of what I'm going to just call business number 3 because I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, the 15th of March is the day that the agreements that I've signed, I can speak about everything. So
Exciting.
Yeah. So that'll be you'll see. I just can't, and you'll also realize why I couldn't talk about it before. What it'll all become clear. But yeah, so another project. Like I need another full-time job, but it is what it is. And yeah, I don't know. It's I'm just kind of in my locked in era. I kind of made that my 2025 is like no partying, no girlfriends, no friends, barely. It just locking in this year.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to come on here and chat with us. For anyone who doesn't know, Willow's founded a winery business at the age of 18 with his partner for about $50, and he has about a great 20 to 25-minute video posted somewhere on X, I believe, and possibly YouTube or wherever else. But definitely find that video, and it's worth the 20 or 25 minutes of your time to watch that story of how he started and how he began, because it is truly an inspiring story. Like, you're a lot younger than me, but I have no problem taking inspiration from people who are younger than me. It's like, if you're going to like be that type of leader, then I have no problem saying hats off to you. And yeah, you do inspire me.
Oh,
and also, okay.
Same. Manitoba's greatest entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Second greatest behind Bruce, I guess.
Oh yeah. Second, but that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
And then big news too, switching over to you, Anthony. Welcome to being a Canadian citizen. Wow.
Oh, thank you. Okay, boy. So I'm not exactly yet, but I passed all the no. Well, almost. I've fulfilled all the requirements and I passed the test, which was very easy, by the way. I guess you guys never had to do it, right?
Yeah. Why is that a big deal? I got my citizenship. 28 years
like
ago.
the day I was born.
Yeah, the day I was born. That was so easy.
But actually, funny story about that. So they give you the test and they say you have 3 attempts, okay? And they give you this big booklet of Canadian facts to know. And I thought, I've been here for a while and I feel like I know a few things. So I said, let me try it first without even necessarily studying. And if I do really poorly, then I will obviously study and do it again. And I got 19 out of 20. It was actually very easy. The one questions I didn't get, and maybe you guys will probably know that, but it was, what is a sport that dates back to when it was just indigenous people here. And
Lacrosse?
lacrosse. I had no
Lacrosse.
idea about that. So
Isn't that our national sport?
Yes,
Is
it
it?
is.
It's like not hockey, it's lacrosse.
Oh,
I'm like
okay, yeah.
95% sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the only one I got wrong, but everything else was very,
So-
who's the first prime minister and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. So
I think
yeah.
So out of
I
curiosity, what did you answer to that question that you got wrong? What was your guess?
I think they had 4 options. It was lacrosse, hockey, and 2 others. And I think I put one of the 2 others. I don't remember what it was though. I think it was like Canadian football or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, rugby.
But I thought hockey is there as a trap, so it can't be hockey. So it has to be one of the other 3.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a smart way
That's
to
actually
think of it,
that
I
was
think.
actually logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did I went to the I was in Halifax a couple years ago, and there's a museum where like the boats would land when Canada was like first a country, and there's a museum, like an immigration museum or whatever. So I went through there because I thought it was interesting, and they had like Canadian citizenship tests that you could do just like as a
okay.
joke, and like I couldn't get more than like 16 out of 20.
Oh wow. Yeah.
As someone who it's like I'm like I don't know what our biggest export is or what our
Yes,
16th
they
prime
do have
minister
some
was, like stuff like that.
questions like that. Yeah.
I'm like, how am I supposed to
Overall,
know?
it wasn't too bad. But anyway, so just to tell you guys, so I fulfilled all the requirements and I had to give my prints to the RCMP. They do that with everyone. I was like, what? But they do. And now it's just paperwork, like it's processing. But I've officially fulfilled everything. So I'm hoping, in a couple months, maybe I will officially get called to do the ceremony. So
Well, congratulations. Good timing too, because it looks like they're trying to revamp the immigration rules, and make it harder. So
yes.
good
Although
timing.
I'm already a permanent resident, so for me it's okay. It's more for people who have like work permits
The
or
students and stuff
students.
too,
That's when
yeah.
it's a bit more
Student
challenging.
visas and such.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing left to do, Anthony, is get a maple leaf tattooed somewhere on your body.
Yeah. Right on my forehead.
Yeah, that's one of the requirements.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, maybe not your forehead, but
Yeah, I've had a couple
right,
friends
guys.
that have taken that citizenship test, and I always like try to tell them that like Trailer Park Boys trivia will be on it.
Oh.
I'm like, no, it's gonna be on there. There's gonna be trivia about like quarter gas or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fairly
That's
easy.
interesting. That's funny.
Wasn't too
That's
bad.
funny. Okay, so we've touched on Brookfield a little bit, and I'm sure we'll probably circle back to that because Anthony will definitely come back to it at some point. Willows, I know one of your biggest convictions is, I believe it's NWC, Northwest Company.
That's correct.
How's that company looking in 2025? And for those that who are watching and don't know, maybe just give a quick background on what NWC, who they are and what they do, and what your outlook is for 2025 and the rest and the future.
Yeah, so Northwest Company, second oldest company in Canada behind the Hudson Bay Company, started as like a fur trading whatever company before like 200 years before Canada was founded.
Right.
And right now what they do primarily is they own and operate grocery stores in remote parts of Canada. So mainly the northern territories and north part of my province, Manitoba, northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan. And then they also have stores in like the Caribbean on like weird, hard to get to islands and stuff, which I always thought was like, I'm like, how does that make any sense? But it's like, oh no, wait, like getting stuff to some weird tropical island is just as hard, if not harder, than getting stuff to some weird northern community with no roads and, so that's what they are good at, is just creating supply chains in places where the private market thinks it's too expensive to do, and the government thinks it's too hard to do. So there's a lot of they have a lot of like government contracts. Like my friends, I can't say too much, but my friend's father is an executive with the Northwest Company. So that's how I get a lot of insight, and I have over the years, and that's how I kind of fell in love with this company. But he said like,
you're insider trading.
I mean, I think it anyway. You're
not actually trading the company, so it's not insider trading. You're just buying and holding.
Insider buying.
Yeah. So there's, and I mean, like you can see the executives and what they buy, right? Like, but there's a lot of times where like if the government needs to get something somewhere super north, they'll like call Northwest Company, be like, hey, can you throw this on one of your planes, please? Like, yeah. So one of the big things that they did this year, which is kind of funny, because they really played it down. They like didn't do a press release. They like is they partnered with Loblaws to sell like No Name brand or whatever the Loblaw. I think it's No Name, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yep.
sell all those brands in their stores. But that was the partnership like inked right when like hashtag boycott Loblaws was trending or whatever. So they like really downplayed the partnership, but it's a good long-term thing. Like you always get like I try to stay away from the kind of political discourse, but like you see the pictures of like a gallon of milk being $42 in Northwest Territories and stuff like that, right? And a lot of people blame the grocery stores for like price gouging or whatever, but
But the reality is,
realistically,
The margins are super thin. It's not their fault.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like easy. It's an easy target to hate them, to be like, well, you're charging so much when someone in Calgary, Alberta is only paying this much. But it's like, well, yeah, because we have trucks and roads and whatnot going to Calgary, Alberta, and not
Yeah.
Holituck, Northwest Territories. But yeah, so it's a solid company based on something that people always need, which is food and supplies. And it's a company that's so established in a region that's very difficult to get established in, that I don't see much competition opening. Nobody's going to be like, you know what we should do? Like open some
Yeah.
grocery stores in a population 400 town, 2,000 kilometers, like
From the nearest
67
road.
kilometers. Yeah, 67 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. That's a great idea, guys.
So it has a wide moat similar to like the railways, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody's
Yes.
going to jump in and say, I'm building a railroad tomorrow. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like, I'm not going to try to open a grocery store in somewhere on some remote northern island, like you said, just shy of the Arctic Circle, or
Yeah,
in the
so
Arctic Circle even.
yeah, so it's they have a moat. They have, I think, no risk of getting broken up by the government or anything like that, like interfered with, really, because the government kind of relies on them for a lot of stuff. And then my long term like 10, 15, 20, 30 year kind of why I'm have conviction is that there's a lot of people trying to kind of develop up there. Like China's been buying mineral rights to
Yeah.
up in Baffin Island and stuff in the Northwest Passage. And as the permafrost is melting and climate change and whatnot, they're trying to build more deep sea ports in the kind of the bays up there. Bad at geography, but yeah, up there. They're trying to build like
Yeah.
more
I know what you mean.
ports that because the problem, they have a port there right now, but the problem is they can't get the standard ship size through, like the Panama size ship or whatever. They can't get it through the ice. But as it opens
As
up,
the ice melts, and yeah,
the idea would be someone needs to invest billions of dollars to build a shipping port there. And I think the Northwest Company is one of these entities that is uniquely positioned. They already have relationships with all these reserves that actually own the land. They have these relationships with the Canadian government, and they already have the supply chains. So like earlier on, it's like, well, if China wants to get their goods out of there to the major population centers, it's like, who's going to take them on their planes and whatnot, right? So I think it's a good company right now. They had a good year the last like 12 months. I think they're up 20%, 25%. They had a good couple earnings calls in a row that were kind of surprise boosts. They kind of peaked out around $52 and they're down, I think, like $47 right now. But I still think it's a good buy because like 5%, 4.5% dividend yield, which I think is and it's
decent.
they have
Quick,
yeah, they have a history of they're one of these companies, kind of like I talk about Exchange Income Corp, where they don't increase the dividend just to increase the dividend. They increase the dividend when it makes sense to increase the dividend.
Right.
Which people can have their they like the realty incomes of the world that increase their dividend every year, no matter what. But I think it makes a lot more sense for the company to increase the dividend when it financially makes sense, right?
I agree. I feel that way about dividends. I just jump in. I've changed a lot over this last year. I've cut a lot of positions from my portfolio, and I would say, even if I still love dividends, I really like either companies that are opportunistic, like they'll pay whatever and then maybe give a special dividend, right?
Mm.
Or companies that don't even pay a dividend, or a tiny one like a Brookfield. The yield is below 1%, but it's because they're reinvesting, they're capital allocators, right? And to be honest, especially if the share price is depressed, I love when they have so much money available to buy back stock all the time. That's like the nicest, because that's like an invisible dividend, So
Right.
Well, I think like me and Anthony had a like 2-hour long talk about Brookfield and how they were founded, and you can find that on X if you want to watch. And that was something we talked about, that like Brookfield empirically is better at spending money and investing money than probably we are. Like,
yes,
you may as
exactly.
well just keep the dividend money and grow my position rather than giving it to me. And I'm like, what do I do with this? With this dividend, let's go buy some wine. Um, like
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
they're historically really good at allocating capital and making, especially like a company like Brookfield that's buying new businesses and whatnot, like expanding new, completely new avenues of revenue, I think a low dividend makes sense.
Agreed. If I can jump into one company, I've started a position, and it's now my fourth largest. Just a few months ago, is Fairfax. You might have seen a couple threads about it. That one, same thing. I think they pay. I don't even know their dividend. It's like an annual one, and it's like $10 or something. The yield is like tiny. It's ridiculous. And similar strategy. They just pay it just so that there's something for someone who cares about a dividend. But really, it's about they keep all the money and they allocate it to wherever they think is the best opportunity. And I like that too. But those
Yeah,
are the kind of companies I'm gravitating more towards, at least in the last year or so, like between Brookfield, Fairfax, Franco-Nevada, same thing. CN Rail, all of those pay a dividend under 50%. And I think it's good to be opportunistic
Yeah.
with the cash.
I saw your due diligence about Fairfax, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll buy a couple shares, and then I look and it's
Oh,
$1,300 for one share, and
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's closer to 2,000 now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, I'm kind of like, because this is where I kind of want to go with my career, which is like acquiring businesses and running businesses. I'm getting much more into studying companies like Brookfield and Exchange Income Corp and Fairfax and whatnot. I find it very interesting, because that's kind of that's the direction I want to take my career, I think.
Yeah.
After I did my first business acquisition, and I was like, wow, this is much easier than starting from scratch with no customers and no brand. Buying a business that's 93 years old was much simpler.
Already established.
One interesting nuance between the Fairfax and Brookfield, and we touched on that in our chat, is Brookfield really, it's most of the time, not always, but many times, they'll buy a business, but they have a plan in mind of stuff they want to do to change it.
Mhm.
Whether it's like, change some of the products that they do, or like change the capital structure, or whatever it is, right? So they actually bring in their investing people and they do stuff. Fairfax is the opposite. They only buy companies that they love, where they think the management is great, and they don't want anything to do with them. Like they bought Sleep Country Canada, the specialty like sleep products
Mattress.
Why
company,
buy a
and
mattress
and they bought them.
anywhere else?
Yeah, and they bought
Oh
them
wow, I
because
didn't know we were going to get singing this morning.
yeah, but they bought them because they love the management team and they love the product, and their plan was just to let them keep doing exactly what they're doing, but it's just under their ownership, right? So it's a slightly different
It's the
way of looking at it.
the Warren Buffett school of investing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where
So
that's very, at least in the last, since I've been conscious of what Warren Buffett's doing, that's basically what he's been doing, is like, I don't have any will to take over the business or change anything. Just, I like it, keep doing what you're doing. I remember when he bought like whatever it was, 20% of Occidental Petroleum, they had like a special, they called a board meeting in the middle of the night, and they're like, I think we're getting taken over. And then he had to release a statement being like, no, I'm not, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm just
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
funny.
I just want to quickly touch on, we've mentioned a couple of videos on X. X really needs a video tab so that people can easily
Agreed.
find these videos so that they're
True.
not just lost in the abyss, and hopefully that is coming. I do
think
kind of want to circle back a little bit. Sorry, Willows. I wanted to circle back a little bit to northern Canada, the Northwest Territories, the Northwest Passage, and yes, I'm sure there are a few ports already built. Like I would think Churchill, Manitoba would have a port, and then further south, like Moosonee, Ontario, in James Bay would probably have a port, and
yeah,
possibly a port on like Victoria Island. That's basically like that biggest island just north of the mainland in the Northwest Territories. So yeah, I definitely see a lot of potential there once those shipping lanes open up a little more, as it seems they're going to with the ice melting, the polar ice caps melting, climate change, blah blah blah. And I
yeah,
do think that will make the logistics for a company like NWC. I guess I don't want to use the word easy, but a little bit easier, right? Just gives them something to
Less
kind
challenging.
of
yeah.
less
They're
challenging might be
established
a better way to
already.
put it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a lot of the legwork. Yeah, as far as I know, like at least the ones I'm most familiar with are the ones in my province. So yeah, like Churchill, Manitoba, and whatnot. Polar bear capital of the world. Fun fact.
Yeah.
But the two problems with that port, as far as I'm aware, I'm not super educated, but are it's difficult to get boats of any substantial size there right now, which just makes it it's too
Right.
expensive. There you don't have the economy of scale to get something there. And then the other problem is it's very difficult right now to get stuff down from there. So
Right.
Churchill,
By rail, you
Manitoba.
mean when you say down, you mean by rail because you can
Yeah,
still access Churchill by rail.
so Churchill, Manitoba is about 8 hours, probably more than that, 12 hours due north of where I am sitting at the moment. Um, and they have what are called winter roads. So you can only drive there
When
six
it's
months of the
frozen.
year when it's
Yeah.
frozen. And then it's just Canadian Shield, otherwise, or permafrost up towards the top. So it's like you can't build infrastructure easily. And then we had a rail line going up there that just went out of business and just didn't
Oh,
exist
I
for
I
like
didn't know that.
so they're back now. They got like or I think somebody else bought them and they got like government money to like maintain it or whatever. But basically,
Oh, so the rail is there
um
again.
but it was like 2 years. You couldn't really get up there much. And it was like a problem. Um because I think I want to say it was Via Rail had like this whatever, and the government said you need to fix your rails and you need to send people, like you need to cap your ticket prices and you need to do all this, or you can get out of
Right.
here. And they said, okay, we'll get out of here, and they just closed
Yeah.
it, went back to
Closed up
America,
shop.
and then just disrepaired the rail. So it was like there was like a year or two there where you just couldn't get stuff up there. Um, and actually, like, so the government's been like floating ideas of ways to do this. And one of the main ideas, this sounds like a joke. They want to have blimps, like zeppelins,
Mm,
that fly between Winnipeg and Churchill and the other northern Manitoba communities, because they figure that's you can put a lot of weight on a zeppelin apparently,
Oh,
or I think Zeppelin has motors and Blimp doesn't. I don't know, but they want to float over it, which I think, like, I heard
wow.
someone say that, and I'm like, yeah, that would be funny, haha. No, no, I'm not kidding. And no, apparently that's like something they're looking into
that's
is
very interesting because
blimps.
Wow.
that's like
Yeah,
100-plus-year-old technology and going back
yeah,
to that.
really got a bad rap from the Hindenburg thing, but
Yeah.
the Hindenburg they filled it with flammable gas. Like modern blimps aren't, like you fill it with inert gas that doesn't burn and explode. And oh, the humanity.
Right.
Also, it's a little sidetrack, and then I'll get back on topic. But I got you only see that one picture of the Hindenburg crashing. Um, and I was like, oh, there's not other pictures. No, the reason why you only see that one picture is because on the other side of it, it was a giant swastika. It was
Oh,
a it
yeah, of
was a
course.
it was a
Oh,
not yeah, it was a Nazi blimp
Ah.
Yeah, and that's why they kind of downplayed it. But
Yeah.
I thought that was I'm like, oh, this is why this has been suppressed. As I thought, yeah, that was a very interesting.
Jesus.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Before we move on from the north, I just want to kind of mention
sorry.
the similarities, like Moosonee, Ontario, which is on James Bay, which is the southern bay off of Hudson's Bay.
Mhm.
Very similar to Churchill, Manitoba. So first, from where I'm sitting, it's a 10-hour drive to Cochrane, Ontario, and then an 8 to 10, maybe even 12-hour train ride from Cochrane to Moosonee. So it's obviously a very remote area as well. And I would assume, I would imagine that any port there would be what you described to Churchill as well, just way too small for any large ships to sail there. So I definitely see a lot of opportunity in the future for something like a Northwest company. And I think we can probably just leave the north in the north now, and we'll move on to our next topic. Um, Anthony, we've kind of already covered a few of your. Not sure what we're looking at
I can't
there.
see this.
It's also
Minus 32.
It's
Oh.
negative 32 in Churchill, Manitoba right
Oh my
now, so
God.
that can probably make it difficult for loading boats and whatnot. I'm
Right.
assume
Yeah.
in northern Ontario ports are similar, where it's very
Yeah.
cold.
Minus 32 degrees Celsius is
That's rough.
it's not
Yeah.
fun. It's really
Yeah.
not.
And is
fun.
that before or after the wind effect?
That's before the wind
Oh
effect.
my God.
Yeah.
It's like minus
Yeah,
50.
so you
Yeah.
yeah, you're at easily minus 40 with the wind chill. Easily minus 40.
Yeah.
So definitely makes things difficult.
Well, yeah.
All right, sorry, I was gonna
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was
gonna
gonna
move
talk about-
on to
Yeah.
we've talked about a little bit about Brookfield with Anthony and Fairfax and Franco, Nevada, and you mentioned the rail lines there. We've all kind of touched on that subject. Anything else on your radar, Anthony, for investing in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I think, firstly, that like 2024 made all of us think that we're great investors because everything went up so much, right? So I would just caution for I know you guys know this, but for everyone listening, it's been 2 years in a row that the S&P went up over 20%. It's actually extremely rare that this happens 3 years in a row. I think it's only happened like once in the last 30 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll happen again, but I think it's quite unlikely. And I think now is the time for everyone, as we invest, to make sure that we buy at appropriate values, right? Like appropriate prices. And also just buy things that are able to withstand whatever is going to come next. Dave, I don't know if tariffs, you wanted to talk about that, but like this, we don't know if tariffs are coming, but they may very well come.
We kind of
like
know they're
literally
probably
tomorrow,
coming.
right? We don't know. And so like for me, when I look at a CN rail, that is going to be massively impacted if we get 25% tariffs, right? It's going to be horrible. They had guidance that they gave for the next year or so, right? High single-digit earnings per share growth. But if we get tariffs, then it's going to completely crush all of that. But the thing about CN Rail is that, Trump is going to be here for 4 years now. But CN is going to outlast the Trump presidency. And it's even going to outlast Trump like his entire life too, right? Like Trump at some point, won't even be around.
My life too, right? So.
Yeah, and mine, right? So
Not
I think
mine.
for
no, you're immortal.
Yeah. So, but my point being that I think now is really the time for because everything went up so much. I think a lot of us are getting confident and buying all kinds of things, but we should all make sure to buy strong businesses for valuations that are appropriate. And all that to say, I think CN now actually is not bad value. It's actually at the lower end of its historical valuation. And of course, if we get tariffs and the stock might fall even more, which would suck, but it's counterintuitive. It might make it a good opportunity to add, if that makes sense. So that one's near the top of my radar of also potential ads, depending on how the next couple of weeks pan out.
So what you're
So
saying
you're
is
telling
don't
me-
buy Trump coin.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that whole thing. You know what? I've been seeing a lot of tweets of people being like, wow, I can't believe he would do this. I feel betrayed. What kind of ruck? And I'm like, this guy has been doing this for like 40 years. Like, what? Do you not know? Also, have you seen his first presidency? So anyway, I don't mean to be political, but
no, it's just it's very funny. I keep commenting on Trump coin things. I'm like, oh, I wish I could invest, but I lost all my money in Hawk Tua coin. And people are getting mad at me.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, here's the thing too, right? Is that when you think of Canada, we're supposed to be America's best friend, and we consider America our best friend. And America, I don't know if you saw his tweet about, I had a great call with Xi Jinping from China. I'm sure we're gonna do great things. And I'm like, I thought China was your strategic adversary and Canada was your best friend, but you're putting tariffs on us and you're praising China. So we're heading in a world of uncertainty. We don't know what's gonna happen. So now more than ever before is the time to really buy companies that can just survive in any environment, like recession or no recession, tariffs or no tariffs, because we just don't know what the Americans are going to do. And the Americans have a huge impact on literally the entire world. So
You're pretty heavily TSX invested, right?
I am, but a lot of my companies are global. Like Brookfield is bigger in
of course.
America. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I am a lot like I'm running into a lot of issues with my the stampery specifically with the exchange rates are killing me.
Yeah.
There's parts that I just can't get for my button department specifically. I just can't get in Canada. I gotta buy from a steel place in America or whatever, and like my bills are
Wow.
30% higher than they were when I took over,
Oh my God.
2.5 years ago. So yeah, the exchange rate's killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we should all prepare as Canadian investors for more uncertainty like that, because but most of my stocks, like I said, are TSX, but big like Couche-Tard even, right? Like Circle K is huge in America, bigger than the Couche-Tard footprint here. CN Rail obviously has the word Canadian in it, but it's actually also in America, right?
Yeah.
Fairfax is huge in America, much bigger there than here, right? So yeah, I think having like big global stocks also helps to insulate a bit from country to country volatility,
So,
which is nice.
Anthony, you're trying to tell us that the stock market doesn't always go up and to the right? I thought that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Always up, up,
Well,
up, up.
no, but you know what? I'm seeing so many really confident tweets out there, right? People say, "Oh, buy this and it'll double next year," and I'm like, "Well, it doubled in 2024, but we don't know what's gonna happen now." So, again, not financial advice, but I think we need to be more. Now is the time to be cautious. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like I'm stuck right in the middle of because I honestly believe I say this kind of hyperbolically, but I honestly believe that no matter what side of the aisle is in government, they're not going to let boomers lose assets. Like they're not going to let them lose value on their houses. They're not going to let them lose value on their stock investments. They're going to keep propping up this market until they literally can't anymore, until it like just completely collapses. So it might double next year. Like I think it's not completely out of the question that Donald Trump like threatens the Jerome Powell to lower interest rates and just starts printing money.
That's true.
And putting money back into the market, and it could happen. It's
and then you've got more inflation. Every time you print money, it's like it's inflation, right?
I mean, it's like they just instead of getting ahead of inflation, they just change their guidance so that now they can tolerate higher inflation, right? Like they change their 2% to 3% or 4% or whatever it is their benchmark. So it's like they didn't beat inflation. They just started reversing course. Like, I don't know.
Well, on that topic, fun fact, but the Franco-Nevada founder, he was on a podcast maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and he talked about what he thinks is going to happen in the US. Now, obviously, everyone's guess is as good as his and mine, but he believes that the Trump policies, as he's outlined them as of today or that day, are going to be actually very inflationary, and Americans should prepare for things like 70s level type of inflation, perhaps. Anyway, he was using that to say now is not a bad time to also consider gold, because at that point in time, gold like shot up quite a lot. And so, anyway.
It's not like the CEO of Franco-Nevada doesn't have a vested interest in you buying
gold, exactly.
Though.
That's why take it with a grain of salt.
But
I've been following this guy for many years, and he hasn't been saying that all the time, but now he's saying, it could be if the US, because basically gold and the US dollar is like, it's like a little lever, right? When the US dollar becomes a little weird or volatile, that's when gold becomes more interesting. Also, people talk a lot about, BRICS, the BRIC countries, right? Setting up their crypto brick or their own currency. But that they have a lot of disagreements in between each other. But the one thing that they do have is gold is actually the BRIC currency, right? So if you also believe that the BRIC countries, over time are going to get stronger in proportion within the entire world, you can also expect perhaps that there will be more transactions made with gold, because like India and China love gold, right? Russia uses gold to get around sanctions and so on, right?
Well, they've been, if anyone was wondering why gold went up 30% in the last couple of years, it's because during the conflict there in Ukraine and Russia, there was a lot of like America's freezing foreign asset reserves and whatnot. They're just like freezing bank accounts. And BRICS countries kind of went, oh, if we have USD, they can just stop accepting it. So maybe so they started settling up their deficits or their trade in gold. And that's what was a big driver of driving the price up, because obviously if you're planning on doing that, then you want to buy more gold reserves, and then buying assets make price go up.
Exactly. So for me, I don't like just buying gold by itself. Like I haven't done that, but I do own a position in Franco-Nevada, and that's, for me, it's like my hedge of, of market volatility or whatever. I think Franco-Nevada is a better stock than just owning gold. And they give you exposure not only to gold, but also silver, palladium, and all these other types of metals. And they also have an oil and gas royalty. People don't know that, but I think it's like 20% of their revenues is actually from oil and gas as well. Same business model. It's a royalty. So they just get, from the top line, a little bit of money from the oil and gas assets that they own, which is nice. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been doing a few more political live streams here. I've actually put the word "and political podcast" in the title, the Passive Income and Political Podcast. So do you want to kind of jump more into the idea of tariffs and what they may accomplish, what Trump thinks they're going to accomplish, and what is probably going to happen in reality? Any thoughts on?
Well,
on
I
the
listened
tariffs?
to Trump's 1-hour interview talking about that, and it's clear that and again, I'm not being partisan. He objectively doesn't understand what a tariff is or what it's supposed to accomplish. I'm sorry to say. He thinks, firstly,
I didn't see that 1 hour, but I'm like, that's got to be it.
He doesn't know what a trade deficit is. He just knows that, like there is a trade deficit with Canada. And so he thinks, oh, we should have a trade surplus against Canada instead of a deficit. A trade deficit just means that Americans consume a lot. They buy more from Canada than they sell. That means that Americans have a lot of money. Their US dollar is strong. It's like a sign of a healthy economy.
It's also 10 times our population.
Yeah, that too. So and also if you exclude a bunch of natural resources and oil and stuff like that, then actually we have the trade deficit with America. So we just sell them all the natural resources because we're a giant country with way more natural resource than almost every other country in the world. So of course they're going to have a trade deficit with us. So all of this stuff, it stuns me that a president of the biggest, most powerful country in the world doesn't understand that. And I hope his advisors know that, but I guess he picks his advisors based on who tells him what he wants to hear, right? So I don't know what he thinks he's going to accomplish with it, except make everyone poorer and weaken our continent. But what will happen, I'm hoping that the work that all our premiers are doing, the great work, right, going to all the governors of all the states and stuff, I'm hoping that the governors will manage to convince Trump that it's a stupid idea and that he should put tariffs on other countries instead of his best friend. But we'll see. I don't know.
Instead of Canada and Mexico. Because they're in the same boat with Mexico, right? Like they get so many vegetables and other food from Mexico. And so it makes zero sense to me, because so most of us, I'm sure anybody watching knows how tariffs actually work, is that the importing business pays the tariff. So that means the American company that's importing the product pays the tariff to the American government, and then that American business passes that tax or tariff onto its consumers. So suddenly now your whatever it is, your piece of steel that you just bought from Canada for $10 is now 25% more. So it's $12.50. So that's in the reality that's the actual reality of tariffs. Now I understand the argument of how tariffs could work is like, okay, well, now though, instead of buying it from another country, we could buy it internally from our own country for that same $12.50. But how often does that really happen? Sure, a few times, 1 out of 10, two out of 10 times maybe, but at the end of the day, it really just increases the cost to the consumer. And so I agree with you 100% that I don't think he understands exactly, or he understands.
He has no idea.
And again,
what a
like he's using
is.
the word subs.
Yeah, subsidize.
He's
We're
using that word
subsidizing
subsidy.
Canada. I hate that so much.
It
It's
doesn't
like
make any
no.
he has no idea.
No.
But another thing too, Dave, that's also important in that discussion, right, is the fact that if, let's say, if it's against a strategic adversary or something, I get it. But for Canada, like, there's a reason that things are cheaper for us to sell, like, let's say lumber or whatever. It's because we have so much of it. We can produce all of these natural resources at scale. So from the American perspective, the best thing ever to do is to get it for cheap from your best friend, because we are not going to use the natural resources to threaten them or stuff like he's trying to do to everyone else, right? We would never do that to America. That's our friend. Whereas Russia has done that against, European countries. So if Europe wanted to put tariffs on certain Russian things, that would actually make sense. It's like protecting themselves. Right? In the short term, it hurts because it's more expensive, but they protect themselves because they build up their industries so that they can be resilient in case Russia tightens the screws. But we would never do that on America. It makes no sense. So that's why I'm so
except
frustrated.
We're probably going to.
Well, yeah, now we have to. Of course, we have to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
But I meant before
and
him
then
trying to do that.
It's like everybody loses.
Exactly.
Everyone
loses.
I've said that. You guys have probably seen me post. It's like nobody wins in a trade war between Canada and the U.S. There's no winners.
Well,
it's a lose-lose situation every time. I'm a lot older than you guys. I've seen it happen before. It's a lose-lose every single time.
Yeah, the
Nobody
only
wins.
benefit, like the tariffs fundamentally aren't about generating income or anything like that. All it does is protect American jobs. But the problem is all the stuff that they're tariffing, or a majority of it, they don't have American industry for it. Like, we're putting tariffs on drone battery technology or whatever from China. And it's like there is no domestic industry doing that at the kind of scale that we need. And the same with the vegetables and whatnot they get from Mexico. It's like they're not really growing them. The labor's too expensive here. Or in America. So it's like all you're doing is protecting American jobs, but then no one's going to hire for the American jobs. Like they don't exist. So I don't know. I'm anti-tariff mostly just on like a moral, I'm a very big free trade guy. So it's just like that's not like I should be able to sell whatever I want to whoever I want for an agreed upon price.
Whenever I want.
Yeah. I don't know why the government's involved at all.
Yeah, I'm anti-tariff when it's stupid and makes no sense, which is the case right now. Sometimes maybe it makes sense, but right now for Canada and the United States, I don't understand. And then I know, he brings up all these other issues like the border and stuff. I'm sorry, there are way more problems between the US and Mexican border than with the Canadian one. If anyone should complain about the American border, it should be us, because we get all our illegal guns from the Americans. We get a lot of fentanyl from the Americans too. So it's like, why are we being blamed for border problems?
For the problems
that
you're creating.
Makes no sense. Yeah. So if there are any Americans listening, we love the Americans, but
we love the American people. You guys know I've had tons of
decisions.
Americans on the Passive Income podcast here. Tons of Americans, great people, love all of them. And thank you everyone who has ever been here before or anyone who will be here in the future. The people themselves are great, but in both Canada and the US, the politicians are just like out to lunch.
Yeah.
And okay, so also obviously pretty much the biggest one for Canada is the oil and gas export, the energy exports. And Canada has shot themselves in the foot by not having like the Energy East pipeline, the Northern Gateway pipelines completed.
Yep.
Because we could easily be selling, like we sell oil and gas at a discount to the US. Like they're complaining about buying something at a discount. And it's like we could be selling that to Germany for maybe not 10 times more, but probably almost 5 times more. Germany wants to buy it from us. We can't supply it to Germany because our politicians, not going to name names, Justin Trudeau and others, have taken out the shotgun and said, I wonder how this is going to feel on my big toe, right? Like,
yeah,
that's my rant about that, I guess.
One thing though about the Eastern one, if I'm not mistaken, I think that even if he wanted to do it, and he didn't, so it is his fault too, but even if he wanted to, I think Quebec doesn't want that pipeline. That's the issue. And you need the approval from all the provinces to get these big infrastructure projects completed.
I know there's technically a constitutional thing you can pull, like the prime minister can pull, where it's like if it's good for the entire country, you can force a province to do it.
Oh, okay.
There's some sort of thing that they can do. And I know that like Maxime Bernier, our alt-right candidate there, he said repeatedly that that's what he would do as prime minister to get the
Okay, I
pipelines
see.
built. So I think it is possible, as far
But
as I'm
politically
aware.
challenging. Yeah.
But well, then you like how many average
Quebec
citizens in
separatism.
Quebec? Yeah, there goes the bloc even more than they are right.
Also, I mean, the bloc is going to like massively dominate in Quebec,
I hope
and they are gonna like the provincial level. They are going to elect the separatist part, like the Parti Québécois. Like Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, he's so popular now and he wants to like do a separatist election as well. So
it's like my political leanings are usually what the most entertaining is. So that's why I wanted Donald Trump to win, just because I think it's funny.
yeah,
And I think the Quebec Separatist Party being the official opposition next election, I think would be the funniest outcome, probably. Like
that would be insane.
a
Yeah,
party I can't be represented by, like, is yeah. I think that would definitely be the funniest outcome.
yeah.
So the Bloc Québécois have been the official opposition in the past.
I think
if I'm not
once.
mistaken.
Which is crazy.
And I do agree with you, Willows, that like it makes no sense to me how the Bloc Québécois is even allowed to be a federal party. Is like, shouldn't a federal party have to have representation in at least
You'd
5
think,
provinces,
yeah, you'd think,
if not 6 or 7? But okay, so then yeah, that's crazy. But obviously, yeah, both the Liberals and NDP have shot themselves in. Again, sorry to keep beating a dead horse with that cliche saying, but you know, the Liberals and NDP are done, right? Like the leaders aren't even going to win their own ridings. Like I saw a poll where Justin Trudeau wasn't going to win his own riding. Jagmeet Singh's probably not going to win his own riding. And
that's why Jagmeet didn't want to call no confidence, because he wanted to last that 6 years to get his pension, because he was worried that if he called an election, he would lose.
Yeah,
which is crazy. But well, his
Now
pension is secured now because
as of like
the whole roguing of Parliament. So it's, I think, sometime in February it kicks in. But he's basically
and now
safe,
now we can have a now we can have an election. I don't know. I don't know why anyone looks at this politics and like believes anything that's you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't think Trump's gonna fix anything. I don't think Justin Trudeau did a worse job than Paul Revere would have done. I don't think any of these people know what they're doing. They're all just obviously selfish and don't care about us. And not only that, but don't know what they're doing. And I don't know. People get so worked up about it.
Yeah, I would say the one lesson that I got from not being a citizen, actually, is that while I'm very passionate about following politics, I never let it affect my, like, I always thought, you know, whatever I do is what's going to determine my life, because anyway, I can't vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I do agree with you, Willows, that I think for most people, including citizens, right, who can vote, 99% of your life will probably be determined by, you know, yourself rather than who's in power.
Yeah.
Sometimes a policy can make a big difference, but a lot of the time, you know, you can kind of do your own thing. And
anyone I talk to about politics, though, I go, okay, what policy specifically do you like or don't like that Trudeau did? And then they don't have any idea of anything. Like, hold on. Something like 60% of Canadians think that we directly vote for the prime minister. Like, they don't understand how the system works.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of political illiteracy.
And that person's vote is worth exactly the same as yours. Someone who's very educated on how the system works, you get one vote, and someone who thinks that you vote for the prime minister, people that argue with me that the Liberal Party of Manitoba and the Liberal Party of Canada are the same party, their vote, they get one vote. I get one vote. Democracy is a scam.
Yeah, was it Mark Twain that said if voting made a difference, they wouldn't let you do it, or something to that effect?
Something like that.
Something like that. Just one last thing on the politics things. This is more kind of funny, but and again, not trying to be partisan, but sometimes, you know, when you know a topic very well and you catch someone lying about it, then you're like, oh my God, they lied, right? But then you have to tell yourself, perhaps that they're lying about so many other things that you don't know much about and you wouldn't know. So I listen to, obviously, because I am very passionate, like I listen to all of them. I listen to Poilievre interviews a lot, right? And sometimes, you know, he attacks Mark Carney. Obviously, it's his job as opposition leader. You're going to do that. But he talks about, basically, he also attacks Brookfield, and he says, yeah, Mark Carney wants to shut down, his company wants to shut down Canadian energy projects and buy pipelines in Brazil and stuff. And they had an interaction like 3 years ago they summoned Mark Carney to explain some stuff. And actually, if you know Brookfield, you know that none of that is true at all, right? But you see, this is like the biggest talking point against Mark Carney that you see on Twitter, for example. Everyone's like, oh, he's a WEF globalist who wants to shut down Canadian pipelines. And it's like, actually, did you know Brookfield bought Inter Pipeline? They fought really hard to get it against Pembina Pipeline, who also wanted that project. And they've invested hundreds of millions into this project. And this is like right in Alberta, creating thousands of jobs, right? And everyone forgot about that. And this was like a couple of years ago. So obviously this is not true if you know Brookfield very well, or if you know Mark Carney, if you look at what he says instead of what someone on Twitter says. But most people don't know.
Yeah. The biggest criticism I've been seeing of Mark Carney is just that he's rich.
Yeah, that too. Or that he's educated.
Yeah.
or that he was a central bank governor. Like, if that's a bad thing. Like, he wants to control our assets and not let us buy crypto. That's such crap.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a way to buy crypto, no matter what, right? Like
that too.
Yeah. Yeah. You can buy Trump coin whenever you want, guys.
Not financial advice.
Yeah.
Everything I say is financial advice.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
you're such an antagonist.
It went up 1,700% a day. I don't know how that's a bad investment. You're telling me that's a bad investment?
It did well for the few who controlled it or who started it.
Yeah, I'm like the one wallet controls 80% of it, and that could be Barron Trump. I'm pretty sure
that would make sense.
That would be funny.
Barron's the mastermind.
that would be quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We live in crazy times for sure.
I'm sure we'll touch back on politics because it is a hot topic right now with Trump getting sworn in literally tomorrow and what's going on in Canada. But let's circle back around to some stocks and companies, and primarily Canadian companies, because I think it was Anthony who said earlier about raising dividends just for the sake of raising dividends. And when you said that, I was like, Bell Canada. And it seems like every year Bell Canada just keeps raising their dividend. And why? Why do they do it? Like, are they trying to go out of business?
I sold it at a lot. I actually, you know what? I exited the entire sector, even Québecor, which I loved. So in total, I exited at a profit because of Québecor. But I said, you know what? Until the stuff with interest rates and all this kind of stuff gets figured out, I just don't want anything to do with that sector. I may buy back Québecor again because that one is a good one to trade also. Like, when it falls below 30, it's a bargain. When it's above 35, it's time to sell. I may jump back in, but Bell, I'm so disappointed.
Which is telecom for you listening at home, if you're not aware.
Yeah. So basically, in Canada, we have about 4 or 5 major telecom providers being Bell Canada.
Is it that many?
Well, yeah, 4, I guess now,
Rogers,
right? Bell Canada,
TELUS,
TELUS, Rogers, and Quebecor.
There's a 5th smaller one too. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, I have never been invested, maybe through ETFs, but I've never been invested directly in telecom, because one of my biggest investing philosophies is like I have to like the product. And I have had, as I'm sure many Canadians have had, the worst experiences with every single telecom provider. There's no one with good customer service. There's no one with affordable prices. And I just can't, like, as someone who buys and operates small businesses, I'm always representing my product as like, I'm very, very far. I wouldn't put out any product at either of my businesses that I don't 100% believe in. So I'm not going to invest in a company like Bell that I just think they're bad at what they're doing. And I'm like, I own that company actually. Like, so I've never touched the industry because I don't like it.
Yeah, for me, Bell, it's just the capital allocation priorities I don't understand. Because yes, the dividend obviously was under pressure, right? And then they announced they were selling their stake of the MLSE, I think, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
They were like a big sale. But then they said they're going to do it to pay down the debt, which is exactly what they were supposed to do. And then like 2 months later, they say, we're going to buy this giant asset in the US. And that was for me when it was like, okay, these guys, now I don't believe you guys anymore. You know what I mean? Like, before that, I was like, you know what? The sale of strategic assets, paying down the debt, like that, there's a way to recovery here. but I don't understand what they're trying to do now. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, that sale of MLSE is Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, which is like
Yeah.
basically the Toronto sports teams, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the others. And that made zero sense to me, is because one of the most profitable divisions. Why would you sell off something that's actually making money when so much of every other division is like under duress and operating at a loss? It's like you need that company or that division that's profitable to continue on with your others. So that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Obviously the part about paying down the debt did make sense to me. It's like, okay, well, because it's a profitable company, you can get a possibly even more than fair market value for it. And Rogers probably did pay through the nose for it because Rogers wanted it so badly, right?
Yes.
But
just
did
a
they
terrible
actually pay down the debt? Right?
Yeah, no, it's terrible. The only, I mean, again, I would say though, Québécois is actually still very good, I think, because their payout ratio is like 40%, so their dividend is really affordable. They actually have lower debts also than the other two. They're really doing okay. My only concern with Québécois, and I did raise that in a episode a long time ago, but their media division, for the others, it is struggling a lot. But instead of getting rid of it, they're considering doubling down to buy more media assets. And that's where I'm like, why double down on what's not doing well? That part I don't understand. And for them, it's because they're trying to get it like for really good value.
Yeah.
Which I still get it, but I still don't like it.
Though, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's not the industry of the future, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there'll always be a place for like some form of traditional media, but it's not going to be bigger in 20 years than it was 20 years ago, right? It's the opposite. So that's what I don't understand. And that's why I sold
point.
also.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
Fair point. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, so the telecoms, just for full disclosure, I also sold out of Bell Canada. It was the only telecom that I owned. And yes, the dividend was nice. It was, really nice
Very
every
high.
3 months showing up with that much. But you're like looking at it going, this is not
Yeah.
sustainable. This
Unsustainable.
isn't sustainable. So, yeah.
Yeah, Dave, honestly, this is why, like I said, right, I've really, now for me, dividends, I don't care that much if a company pays a dividend. I care really about, how much cash flow are they bringing in and how well do they allocate the cash flow. And sometimes a great way to allocate it is paying dividends, right? If it's just a very mature industry where it's harder to grow, then that's totally fine. But then at least the requirement is you have to be able to afford paying that dividend, right? And Bell just didn't, like, the capital allocation was bad and they can't afford the dividend. So that's like two huge red flags where I said, all right, I'm done with you guys. I can't.
Yeah, because the dividend was like at 103% of
more
revenue.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's
that doesn't make sense to me. So
exactly.
And there's a lot of companies that are like, I guess they're like scared to cut their dividend because
Yes.
that's showing to the average investors that they're not doing so hot. But I think like I did a podcast about A&W Canada because they switched how their company is functioning recently.
Yep.
And like they cut their dividend to zero right when the pandemic happened, because they were like, we don't know what's going to happen and whatever. And then they paid out, I think, like special dividends because they had like extra money after that, like didn't fall down. And then like someone like Costco does the same thing where they're like, they don't increase their dividend much, but if they have a good year, they'll pay out a special dividend.
I like that.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's more responsible.
That's how a company should operate, in
yeah.
my opinion. That special dividends plus like for me is do a tiny dividend that maybe grows a little bit, but have lots of special dividends and lots of buybacks when it makes sense. I think that's how most companies should aim to operate instead of just paying all of their cash. Because then if you have one bad year, then you can't afford it. And then you're in big trouble, right?
Yeah. And that's why like Realty Income, having the having the built into your name that you raise your dividend every month is like it's unsustainable. I don't like you're betting so hard on constant growth that is, you have a couple year period where your industry is shut down from some outside sources. It's like now all of a sudden you still have to, you committed to it, so you got to keep raising the dividend, but it's not a good idea to do. And then that's how we get 150% payout ratios, which is all right.
Literally.
Yeah.
I believe Realty Income raises their dividend every quarter and it goes up by like 0.002% or something.
It's like,
So
why
it's a
even
very
do
Yeah, there's
it? Like,
there's a very
no point.
tiny, yeah, exactly. Like, why don't you just do that once a year and raise it by 0.5% or something or whatever? But
yeah.
that's their business model for whatever reason.
One company though that has been raising every quarter, but they've been successful is EQB.
I was
They
actually
raise
just about to bring up the Canadian banks, and I knew you
every
wanted to talk
single.
about EQB.
No. But here's the thing, okay? Their payout ratio has never been more than 20%, so they can afford their dividend. But their dividend growth over the last 5 years, compounded growth, 22%. So, and it's been the quarter to quarter too, right? So they've done a splendid job. Like what they've done with their dividend policy is how I want all my companies to do it. It's like have a conservative payout ratio, but grow it more than inflation, like the dividend itself, right? And obviously, if you don't have high earnings growth, then don't grow a dividend as much. So they've given their guidance now for medium term for closer to 15% growth because their earnings are probably going to still grow, but like not like 25% year over year, which is fine. And that's good. To me, double-digit dividend raise is perfect as long as you can afford it, which they do. So if all my companies could do that, that would be great. And fun fact, they were asking for feedback on their dividend policy last year. And I sent them a pretty long email/letter where I said, look, you guys are doing great. You should actually cancel dividend entirely. Like just, because you guys are so good at your capital allocation or whatever, you can invest it better than I do. So don't have a dividend or maybe pay a tiny one, but focus on keeping most of the cash flow to make sure that your company is doing well and you can make acquisitions and stuff like that. And that they didn't cancel the dividend, but they are gonna pay less, which I think is good. And
So
their
you're
total return,
definitely-
I have to add, obviously, has been much better than any other Canadian bank in the last 10 years.
I have a chart here. Yeah, 100% 5 years.
Yeah, it's been really
So
impressive.
you're still very much in love with EQB.
It's my only Canadian bank now. Yeah, I
Crazy.
sold the others.
I actually, honestly, I sold out as well. I sold out a TD in that whole
The money laundering.
I actually did okay on that because I had bought when it was low, and then I was like basically
too.
when the story broke, and it's like okay, and then it kind of came back a little bit, and I didn't. I mean, when I say I did okay, it was only a few shares, right? But make a few bucks here and there, it's all right. And I think I held it through one dividend period, so got a few cents that way too. And then it's like, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to like hold on to this through the long haul of TD's rebound, and then just sort of same thing. I didn't really have enough shares in any of the other banks, other than Bank of Nova Scotia, but like CIBC or the others, I like 2 or 3 shares, and I was kind of like, why am I even holding on to this? I just have way too many in my portfolio, so it's just like, okay, trim, and then it got to the point where it's like, yeah. I am going to take a much closer look at EQB now, though. I know you've been telling me about it for 2 years.
You should.
And
You know what?
I
Don't
probably
take
should
it
have
from me,
got
okay?
into it 2 years
Because
ago.
I am not, an expert financial analyst or whatever. Take it from the RBC team that initiated coverage last week. They gave EQB $153 price target by 2026. That right now it's like 110 or something.
108.39.
Yeah. And they put like a whole big research report on their assumptions and stuff, whatever, right? So I looked at EQB's earnings guidance and I slapped a $10 multiple on it, and I thought, okay, if they hit just the low end of their guidance, and then I put a chart of like what price could it more or less trade at, right? And I was actually even more conservative than what the RBC team themselves think EQB is actually going to achieve. So obviously price targets should always be taken with a grain of salt. But what's interesting about their report is they show what the business performance they think EQB is going to deliver, and it's really very, very, very positive. So I like them. I think they're very good.
That's quite a vote of confidence too, coming from RBC.
Yeah.
From a direct competitor. Yeah, the only reason I don't like online only banks and whatnot is just running a business. It makes it more difficult. I've talked about this before where it's like I constantly need change for my cash boxes and registers and whatnot. Which is I can't get from an ATM, obviously. Like I got to get from a human. I don't know what that's like. I don't know. Business idea.
I
ATM I can get
think
loonies from.
I think for EQB, what they're trying to do, they're not trying to be the bank for everybody, but they're
Yeah.
trying to be the best bank for the people that they're trying to be the bank for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
that must
So
exist. Like you can go into a laundromat and put a $5 bill in or $10 bill and get out loonies and toonies, right?
yeah, I guess like if I'm gonna go
Not,
to
I know you probably need like hundreds of dollars of change, but
yeah.
you're not going to go into a
So
laundromat and do that. But I'm saying that like it's there.
it
You would
just
think
yeah,
somebody
I
could
mean
make
like
that scale.
I'm a busy guy, Dave. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just like, I gotta go to a bank, withdraw cash, and then go to a laundromat and then put it in the
No,
machine.
I'm
You know
just
what I mean?
saying, right? I'm just
100%.
saying.
And then also for like just for doing I don't know, how is EQ like do you bank with them, Anthony?
I do.
Okay. And how are they for like if I wanted to send like a wire like across into the States, for instance?
They're the best. They're actually
Okay.
connected with Wise. Transfer, which used to be called TransferWise, now it's called Wise. And you get actually the best rates. They don't charge extra fees or whatever. You actually get even better rates than if you were signed up with Wise by yourself, because EQB has their special relationship with them, so they get whatever like discounted option, or I don't know, whatever it's called, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they're international transfers, including US, but a bunch of other countries. They're the best. You can also use your EQ Bank card. Now I sound like I'm promoting them. I'm not, but really, you can use your card in like if you're traveling. Let's say I went to Portugal, for example. You can use your card there, and you get charged just the actual interest rates. They don't charge a spread. That's crazy, because any
Yeah.
other credit card,
Yeah.
if you go, you know how it is, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
they're really good.
Okay.
I gotta tell you.
Because like I guess in my mind I'm equating them more to like a credit union, which I shouldn't be doing. But like my friends that have businesses that like they wanted to go the banking with a credit union route, they don't have like a bunch of features that I would have as a bank
Oh, right. I see.
user. Like they don't have like I remember someone was like, "Oh, I can't buy my supplies from the States anymore because they're only taking wires now." And I'm like, just send them a wire. And they're like, "Oh, my bank won't let me." Like they just don't have the
Oh,
ability
no.
to do it or anything.
So no, EQB is a real bank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like I think that's just like in my head. I'm like,
Yes.
well, if I, an online only bank doesn't have what's the one that everyone had like 10 years ago? Anyone know what I'm talking about? It's like a
Nope.
no, me neither.
But
You're
they
thinking of
do have
ING or Tangerine, but isn't
Tangerine,
that what
that's the
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Tangerine's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tangerine? Well, ING became Tangerine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what I was thinking of. I feel like that they didn't have like any features that you would want from a bank.
Yeah, but also you have to consider that EQB is still evolving, right? Because EQ Bank itself is only since 2013, I think, and their business accounts that I was telling you about, right? That just came out in 2024.
Yeah,
and they keep rolling out new features. They just rolled out last year too. It was a notice savings account. I don't know if you guys saw that. But basically, if you know like a GIC, right, you lock in your money for a year or 6 months or whatever, and then you get your money at the end with extra money. Notice savings account now is the same thing as a GIC, but it's for 10 days or 30 days. You just give them 10-day notice when you want to get your money out, and then you get it, but you still have the interest rate of a GIC, which is spectacular.
Sounds almost like crypto staking. Just stake your money.
Yeah, no, it's
days.
I don't know, but
Like,
it's spectacular.
You laugh, but like I'm not wrong.
No, this is I agree. It's a funny comparison.
Yeah. So they're continually rolling out new products. I wouldn't be surprised if in 2025, we see even more features and whatnot. They're good. And the thing is, because they don't have that physical footprint, right? If that's also what makes them so profitable, because they save all this, money for CapEx, and they get to, innovate, go really fast. Also, their entire infrastructure, digital infrastructure, is all hosted on the cloud, which means that they can innovate much faster than all the others that are still, stuck in the 1800s.
Windows 95.
Yes, no, literally.
Systems,
and it actually makes a difference, because it means when they get, feedback from their customers on stuff, they can just change the features like ASAP, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a
difference,
difference,
even old
and that's
enough
a
to
competitive
remember
advantage.
Windows 95. That was the height of technology back then. It actually was back then. You guys aren't old enough to recall and remember that.
I do remember dial-up internet though. We had that when I was a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was gonna say about the physical locations. That's a good point, because like in my city, at least, I think it's probably my city's pretty dangerous as far as the crime goes. But every bank has been closing branches here, like a lot. Like there's my drive home from work, there's like 4 different closed like RBCs and TDs and BMOs that they're just like not dealing with. It's expensive to run, especially like the downtown Winnipeg gets a little bit bad rap of crime and whatnot. Sometimes crime that doesn't make any sense, like they're trying to steal an ATM with hands, like stuff like that. But it's like you got to fix the windows, and you got it's like it's just like at a certain point it becomes more trouble than it's worth. There's an RBC down the corner here that they like got rid of all their tellers. They just had ATMs. They did that for like 6 months, and now they just have nothing. They just closed the entire building because it was like people sleeping in the in the thing. And
we have that in Toronto too.
I mean, like, but it's just that was an interesting because I assume rent in these standalone banking buildings is a giant part of the balance sheet of the Big Five there,
and it's increasingly becoming obsolete infrastructure for the most part, right? Because like for the majority of people's banking needs, you don't actually need to physically go somewhere and do stuff, with your hands, with people, right? Sometimes you really do, like you mentioned, this thing about getting change and stuff. Those are niche needs that are still important for special customers, right?
But last time I was at a bank, my winery banks with RBC. So I was standing in line in the RBC, and I only had like 20 minutes, and everyone in front of me one guy was trying to pay his hydro bill. One guy was talking about like, can you cash a check for me? And they're like, yep, here, like, give us the check. And he's like, well, I don't have it with me. I just like, and it's like, what are we talking about? Like everybody in front of me in line was just, they had never been in a bank before in their entire lives. They'd never even heard the concept of a bank. And they're just like, I don't know. It was just like, I just need my change, please. And
like
usually there's
that
like
hydro bill, you should be doing that like online on your phone, basically.
Or you could do it over the phone with a credit card 30 years ago. Like, I don't know. Why do you need to be physically in a bank? Why in a bank? And like they usually have like a business wicket open, but the one by my office now, like they only have the business wicket open until like 3 p.m.
Oh,
so by the time I get off work, it's like they're not even open. It's just so I have to wait with the plebeians in the normal line, and it's I don't know. Yeah, no, it's a bad experience. And if I could get it all online, if I could get loonies and toonies I could print them from my computer, then I would be very motivated to switch. Because even like drug dealers nowadays take Interact e-transfer. Like you don't need cash for anything.
That's true.
Like the average consumer.
EQ Bank was the first bank in Canada to give e-transfers for free. Because a lot of all the others, they used to charge for it. And I think now most of them also do it for free, right?
They're all
for consumers. I still pay $1 for my business ones.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, it sucks.
There you go.
So just to add quickly to that bank closure thing. So as you guys know, I live in a small city. It's only like 50 to 55,000 people. And years ago, there were 2 RBCs, and there was a location downtown. So obviously the downtown is tiny. It's literally like about 5 blocks, right? But obviously, even still in a city this size, the downtown real estate is going to be more expensive. So they closed that RBC. I want to say at least 5 years ago now, 4 to 6 years ago, something like that. And then so there is one RBC remaining in town, and it's like a midtown. It's literally like right in the center, the center of the city. If you take downtown on one side, uptown, they're midtown or east and west, and it's pretty much like very central location. There's no need for a second RBC in a city this size. So I can see why they would be closing branches. There are still 2 Scotiabank branches. I think, there's still 2 CIBC branches. And then I don't really deal too often with BMO or TD, so I'm sure they must have at least 1 branch each. Yeah, I know where the one BMO is in town. So it's just like, and again, like a city of 55,000, do you need, how many branches of any bank do you need, right? So
not many.
Yeah,
one apparently is the RBC's answer.
Well, a lot of them have like deals too, where you can get like stuff out of other ATMs for like without paying absorbent fees. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and there are some type of accounts too where they're like, okay, well, you're paying this much for your account this month, so you can go to any bank machine, whether it's an RBC or a CIBC or whatever, and we won't charge you, but they'll like maybe that other bank will charge you. We can't say what they're going to do, but
On that, EQ Bank, obviously, you can use your card, go to any ATM in Canada, no charge. Like, you can take your
No
EQ Bank
charge
card and
from
when you
EQB,
withdraw.
but do the other banks charge for that card? That's
No. They pay you back. You don't get charged.
Oh.
Like if you have an EQ Bank account, firstly on the EQ Bank, obviously having an account, no fees ever for anything, no minimum balance, none of that stuff. You have your EQ Bank card. I do this regularly. I go to CIBC, which is like this one right next where I live, to withdraw money if I have any cash. I put it in the CIBC ATM. I get my cash, no fees,
That's awesome.
and that's for any bank in Canada with
Right.
EQB card. So that's another thing too.
That sounds good. You're selling me on it for sure. Okay,
I'm
at
not
least
even
one
trying,
more-
but like I'm just narrating my life right now.
I'm not saying secret project number 1 needs a new bank account, but maybe it does. So maybe I'll text my people right now and be like, thoughts
Well,
on
I do
But
have.
you know what? You could also just have it as a secondary bank, right? You can still have your normal bank account, but also add an EQB one and just try and see how it is. And
One more
I
question
would-
One more question about EQB. Can you get like an EQB Visa or MasterCard? Are they teamed up?
No,
with...
so what they have, it's very strict. It's like a hybrid product. So their card is like a hybrid between a credit card and a debit card. So you load it and then you can use it for anything. You can withdraw cash, whatever. But it's technically not a credit card. It's a bit odd. Basically, they wanted the good features of credit and debit at the same time, which is like actually their account. Like when you create an account at EQB, it's the same thing. It's like a hybrid between a checking account and a savings account, because you get the high interest, and you can send e-transfers and do whatever you want. But so it's like both.
Do they have? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it acts like a prepaid credit card, like a
kind of.
Go out to Walmart and buy a $50 Visa prepaid credit card.
Yes, exactly. But you do have to load the money in, which you can do on your phone, right? Like so you have basically your account, and then there's the card and it shows the balance. And if you need money for whatever, you just log in on your phone and just transfer whatever amount you want, and then you can use it. Oh, and the card itself accumulates money also, like whatever, like bank account, right? So you get like interest, and it's also cash back as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I meant it acts like points, but it's actual real currency.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Is there any credit opportunity, like line of credit or anything?
That I don't know.
Because that's obviously with a manufacturing businesses that I run, having constant credit is
right. Yeah,
because I buy supplies, and then by the time I actually get money for it can be a long time. So having constant credit,
I don't know it. I'd have to look into it. But I think probably, well, maybe actually, I don't know.
So I would assume EQ, do they offer mortgages? And then you would probably
be able to
I see. I'm on their website here. I see mortgages, but I wonder if any because like for instance, BMO
you could probably get
a
line of credit on the property, right? So you if you bought a business and you bought the building, and so you own property and had a mortgage, you could probably get a line of credit on that mortgage. Would be my logical thinking.
But like for instance, when I acquired my stampery, BMO gave me a loan to buy the company, and then part of that deal was they also gave me a credit card and a bank account and all that. So it was like one kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. So for that, that's like more specialty needs, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure how that is, but you can call. So fun fact, I had the head of their bank on my podcast. I don't know if you guys heard that episode.
That was a nice to it yet, but
that was a nice episode. Yeah. And she said, I haven't tried it, but she said they like 90% of their calls to their customer service have to be answered within 10 seconds or something like that. And she was like, yeah, try it and you'll see. So I haven't tried, but you can probably at some point give them a call. And
like you actually get a human being within 10 seconds to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That is quite cool if it's true, which I mean, I imagine it should be true, but we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I have
30 seconds. I don't remember.
I have one more topic before we wrap it up, because I see we're already pushing an hour and 30 here, and I know you guys don't mind. I'm sure Willows has some things to go sell at farmers markets or whatnot.
I got Willows event tonight.
Willows, as you know, I've been doing dry January, so that is very counterintuitive to your business.
Boo.
But with that said, I'm pretty sure that by the time that February dividend rolls around, you're going to owe me a beer.
I don't think that's true, right? For context, Dave is a very big Ryokan fan, and I
Advocate, yeah.
had advocate, and I had one share, and every time I would post the dividend every month or whatever, he
9
would
cents.
in my 9 cents, he would say, "You got to buy more shares," and I said, trying to be sneaky, I'm like, well, okay, so here's the thing: buy me a share, and then having more shareholders drives the price up, thus making your shares worth more. Thus, it's basically free. It's girl math. And
I guess.
So I said
yeah.
to him, okay, I will send you the e-transfer of $20. I think they were down below 18 at the time, or 19 or whatever. I was like, I'll e-transfer you the $19, but if I'm buying you a share, you have to also match that and buy yourself another share, which I believe you did, right? So
I
you now
did.
have
Yeah.
you still have 3 shares of Ryokan, or do you have any
Yes.
more?
No, I have 3. So basically, every time I get my whatever 27-cent dividend, um, Dave said I owe him a beer once I get enough money to
To
buy
repay that $18,
yeah. So 27 cents times however many months, and a pint is like what, $9? So we're gonna be waiting a little bit, buddy.
Well, if you guys visit Toronto, Ryokan completed the well. I don't know if you've heard of that project, this big
I
real
had
estate.
heard of it. I didn't know
It's
where it was. It was
beautiful.
I
It's amazing. So nice.
yeah,
Great restaurants, entertainment, everything you want, all the best shops, whatever. It's gonna be like a big tourist destination. It's awesome. So if you guys visit, definitely check it out.
So I was on the Ryokan website. Oh, it's got to be close to a year ago now, if not more. And that was sort of like their main selling feature of this is what our sort of up and coming, what we're building now. And
Yes.
it looked very impressive, just of like the architecture drawings. And I can only imagine what it looks like IRL.
It is. And the thing is, it's not just shops and stuff, right? It's also offices, like a bunch of companies are there. Also like residential, a bunch of apartments on top. It's beautiful. And
Yeah, that was the big
everyone I
thing. That's
know
my
is
big.
going.
Sorry. That's my big. One of my big motivating factors of Ryokan over smart centers is their push into the residential. Of course, as we know, the housing crisis in Canada, the astronomical
Yeah.
price of real estate in Toronto and Vancouver, and the other urban centers aren't cheap either. Calgary and Edmonton aren't too bad. I'm guessing Winnipeg probably is relative to Calgary and Alberta, or sorry, Calgary and Edmonton, but Montreal is astronomical as well.
Yeah.
Ottawa is not cheap either. So anything to do with residential real estate, I think is good going forward. Like the more units that get built, the more houses that get built, the more living accommodations that are built can only improve. And of course, again, the Liberal government did this to ourselves. We did it to ourselves by voting in the Liberal government 3 times. You let in 5 million more people and you only have 200,000 more houses available. Well, what do you think's going to happen, right? Like it's pretty simple supply and demand economics. The math doesn't work. So, yeah, kudos to Ryokan for finishing that project. And someday,
It's beautiful.
as you know, Anthony, I'm in the GTA a lot more now with what I'm doing now. So eventually, someday, when I'm not just in a rush to get things delivered or picked up, I'll figure out some time to meet you for a coffee.
Let me know. I'll give you a tour of the well. We'll go together. It'll be great.
That'd be
I'll
awesome.
show you all the amazing stuff. Whenever I'm there, my wife and I were walking around there, and I'm like, "Look, we own this building. We own this. We own that. Look, this company pays us rent." It's really funny. So yeah, it's an awesome, really awesome place. You guys will love it.
Anytime I get more than 6 hours off of work, I will I'll come party with you guys. Don't worry.
We look forward to it.
'Cause how long is a flight from Winnipeg to Toronto? It's about what, 2.5-hour flight, probably.
Yeah, 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty quick.
No, that's not too long.
Yeah, I've been there once. The organization that helped me get my funding for my first business, Futurepreneur, they're called.
Oh yeah, I know them.
Yeah, so they flew me out to they have a conference in Toronto every year. I'm not sure they do anymore because of after the pandemic, but they used to have like a conference. They invited all the entrepreneurs. You had talks and whatnot, and they picked whatever it was 5 entrepreneurs from each province and gave them a bursary, and I was one of the Manitoba ones that
Wow.
got so they gave me a bursary for flights, and I think it was like $500, and I was like, I'm gonna only spend this amount of money the entire time. So I like got like the cheapest Airbnb I could and like whatever, because I didn't want to spend a cent of my own money. But yeah, I spent basically I think like Thursday to Sunday kind of thing there, and
Nice.
basically just business conference during the day, and then just drinking at night. I wanted to save money from the Airbnb, so I only paid for it for like till the last, like the Saturday night or like the Friday night, whatever. I had to stay up 24 hours because I didn't pay for another one, so I just stayed up like drinking for 24 hours, and then got on a flight at like 5 a.m. and then
Okay.
back to
Smart.
Winnipeg just to save the one night of money or whatever. But I was like downtown Toronto, like Yonge Street, kind of like, where all the
Yes. Yeah,
patios
yeah.
and everything are. And I was with a couple people I knew from before, but then like we had met a bunch of girls and whatnot, and we were just, bar hopping. And so I was like drunk, and I was telling someone my plan. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just drinking all night, and then 5 a.m. I'm getting on a flight. And they're like, how are you getting to the airport? And I'm like, the train, right? Like how I got here. And they're like, oh, the train closes at whatever it is, 2
Yeah.
a.m. or whatever. And I'm like, that would have been good to know. I look 35 minutes till last train goes, and my bags were in my buddy's Airbnb. So we like sprinted, just like running like a madman, grab my bags and then run to the train station. And then I got on the last train going to the airport,
Wow.
like at the last, like, okay, we're closing the doors.
Oh
Like,
my God.
and then I just,
Barely made it.
and then I just fell asleep on the floor of the airport using my suitcase as a pillow. And then got on a flight and came back here and then slept for like 12 hours. And yeah. So
Oh,
that's my Toronto experience. That was pre-pandemic. That would have been 2017, 2018.
Fun times. Toronto pre-pandemic was really fun.
Yeah.
Now it has its challenges, but back then it was quite nice.
Yeah, I it was like, I just remember a lot of like open air, like the bars would have the doors open, you'd hear the
Yes.
music from inside, and you could
Yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like go
Oh
from
yeah.
place to place, and it was really, we had a good time.
So
Fun.
okay, guys, we've been going for an hour and a half now, and in that 90 minutes, one Via Rail train just went by. Obviously, today's Sunday, and the trains are slower on Sundays typically. But I was actually like waiting for a train to go by just to say, "Hey guys, there goes a train." So literally, just the Via Rail train, and they're obviously they're on a schedule. The CN
Mhm.
trains just go at any time, whenever, day and night. But just kind of funny that there's only been that one train now in 90 minutes when usually, again, you guys know I post them.
Yes, you
I
get
had
a lot
fallen
of
off posting them until recently. There, I posted one of just random 20 seconds of a train going by in a little quick video.
One
I do have a
thing
quick.
I did have something I wanted to talk about quick.
Sure, go for it.
I wanted to talk about that you are now a entrepreneur. You are now a business owner
Well,
officially.
again, yes, I am.
So welcome to working way too many hours without getting paid at all.
Uh,
It's fun.
yeah, already. So the business is just going on 5 months old now, 4.5 to 5 months old. I started sort of late September, early October.
Yeah.
And obviously there's already things that I've learned, and things is like, I'd like to go back in time and do things a little bit differently. As you guys know, it's a delivery and courier service. And when I kind of separate it that way, meaning a delivery is something that is, full size pallets, 4-6 pallets, dock to docks, or like loading dock to loading dock service. And then the courier is just sort of any small package that can be taken in any vehicle, whether it's a 20-pound box or an envelope or whatever. And what I've definitely learned, and if hindsight being 2020, to have a do over, I would be like, I would just focus on the courier service. The courier business is right now by far more profitable than the delivery business. But with that said, for a business that's barely 5 months old, if that, I am happy with the growth. I do have one extremely good customer that pays me quite well just to run packages back and forth between Kingston and Toronto. So it's like 3 hours each way up and down the 401, just on the northern side of Lake Ontario. And so they're an incredible client. And then I have, a few other clients that I've been working with as well. My ex-employer even texted me one day, and I ended up doing a delivery for them the following day. I was like,
That's fine.
that was pretty out of the blue. So I mean, yeah, it's good. Could it be better? Of course, right? Would I like to be making more revenue? Obviously. I did put a bid in last week that could be somewhat lucrative. Lucrative revenue wise, it wouldn't be as profitable, but it would just be guaranteed revenue for pretty much the rest of 2025, and it would pretty much put me to that goal of the 100K revenue for the first year of business, which I think 100K revenue
good.
for a 1 year
first
old
year.
business,
That's amazing.
yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
pretty decent, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So yeah, I'm getting there. It's growing. Like I said, are there things that I would have liked to have done differently? Definitely
course.
guaranteed. But I'm sure, Willows, you could look back and say that as well, right? I'm sure there's tons
Yeah.
of things you look back
No.
on going, I wish I could have done that differently.
Yeah, and I wouldn't spend too much time and effort thinking about what you could have done differently. How I always kind of thought of it is like, when I started my business at like 18, we opened full operation when I was like early, like 20, just turned 20. And a lot of my peers, like people that I got into high school with or whatever, friends and whatever, still did university for another 2 or 3 years, after that, after I had been in full kind of operation. And like the things I learned in those 4 years or whatever, the first 4 years doing business is significantly more than I would have learned, in business school or whatever.
Yeah, for a
So
university degree.
yeah, so if that helps your brain, it helped mine. Just be like, well, I can write off 4 years of doing a business poorly, and basically that's just my education. So
It's true.
Right.
if that was like something that I thought about when I was kind of having a mental breakdown early on, where I'm like, I'm doing everything wrong, and we're gonna go into business and all this, and it's like, all right, well, comparatively, I could have invested my time in getting a business degree that wouldn't help me at all, or actually learning the business on the ground, and you'll learn a lot more. Like every mistake that you made, I'm sure you won't make it again.
Right.
So
And I also, even before, like years ago in life, I've always, tried to not stress over the little things and not dwell on the past. Like the past is the past. You can't unring that bell. You can't change what's already happened. So, don't worry about it because there's nothing you can do about it now. And like you said, yeah, just do your best not to repeat the same mistakes.
yeah,
Do
anything that
not
I've
repeat the same mistakes.
yeah, anything that I've learned in my business, like we had no funding to begin with, so any like misstep like put us very close to going out of business still. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you like learning on the job like that, when you make a mistake that almost puts you under, you'll never, like, I internalize that and I'll never make those same
Best
mistakes
lessons
again.
ever.
Like, much better than hypothetically, let's do a report on, hypothetically in the classroom of
For a
business,
case
and then
study.
this thing happened. Like, you're not learning from that, I think, but like actually when it happens to you and when you have those nights where it's like, oh shit, like that was not the right
Yeah.
move, you'll never make that mistake again.
Even in investing, it's good to get something wrong every now and then, because that stays with you forever.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah, well,
thinking of investing in wheat stocks, now we know it's don't follow the hype for no reason.
Yeah.
Or for
Yeah.
me, buying Teladoc in 2021, it's like, well, valuation matters.
Yeah.
Right? That's why earlier in this episode I said, guys, make sure you buy at appropriate prices. It's not for no reason, right? It's because like I've seen the people buying Palantir who are like, yeah, it's going to $1,000 next year. Like, you know what I
What's
mean?
the P ratio? 200?
Like 200 million or something. I don't know. It's crazy. So yeah,
Oh man,
those
I
are
laugh.
good mistakes to make because then they stay with you forever.
Well,
So-
that's just it, right? We definitely learn from our mistakes, and we learn a lot more from our failures than we do from our successes. And
Exactly.
and failures are just stepping stones to success, right? Like,
Exactly.
right?
It's
Well,
either you win or you learn, which is a win, but it's a different type of win. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it does sound like you're producing revenue and profits, hopefully. That cannot be said for every business that starts out. Like,
That's 5 months old. Yeah.
yeah, I do a lot of farmers markets and trade shows and stuff like that, like a ton. especially in the summer. And I see a lot of people that are like just starting their first business at the farmers market, and this is the first time they've ever sold, and they just sit there twiddling their thumbs and they don't sell a single thing, right? And
Right.
there's people that just don't bring in any meaningful revenue ever. So the fact that you have demand for the service that you're providing, I think is probably a good sign. Like we did 87,000 our
Yeah.
first 12 months at the winery.
Well, and I finally got listed on Google too, which is really good because just in the last 2 weeks, like just in the new year, I've had 2 random
Yeah.
calls of people who just found me on
Well,
Google,
Wow.
right? It was like,
well,
okay,
as long as
that's good.
businesses are operating, um, like my stampery specifically, I send out 15 couriered packages a day because like all the law firms and banks and whatnot that are buying stamps from me, they don't care about we charge, whatever it is, $16 in the city to send a courier over. The courier charges me like 10, whatever, I take the spread. And but I'm sending
Yeah.
it, yeah, like my shipping desk at the front door is packed with orders every morning going out, like, and that's never gonna stop, right? As long as there's
Change.
businesses doing
Yeah.
business that need physical products, I mean, there's demand for what you're doing. And I use another courier for shipping pallets of wine to the liquor board, because then they do the distribution or whatever. And then in a private system for alcohol specifically, um, or I guess any other product, then I'd have to be sending pallets everywhere, right? So
Right.
yeah, I think if you get a couple good clients that are large that are shipping across the province, you can probably get consistent income all the time.
Yeah, and that's sort of I've been focusing on like GTA, Central Ontario, Eastern Ontario, because as of right now, as I'm growing, it doesn't make sense to go to. I have been a couple places not too far west of Toronto, like less than 100 kilometers west of the GTA, but I don't want to go sort of any further than that because as of right now, it just doesn't make sense for me to go any further than that. But with that said, when do you want to take delivery on your 2 pallets of tomato paste so we can start making those
Yeah, he
Caesars?
was DMing me, trying to sell me like tens of thousands of dollars of tomato paste the other day.
Wow.
No, 2 pallets wouldn't be that
I don't know
much.
how much does tomato paste cost. Yeah.
Uh, 80 cents a pound
All right. Well,
USD.
then you drive it to Winnipeg, and I'm sure you'll make money after that.
Okay.
Probably.
Well, it's FOB
Yeah,
also
that
though,
is fair.
right? Like
Yeah,
after you
yeah,
buy it, it's also
yeah.
FOB, so
I think it'll be interesting. Do you foresee in like 15 years from now that you have like a fleet of like Tesla self-driving semis? Okay.
no.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so here's the yes and no answer to that is in 5 to 10 years, I could foresee having, um, even just like the Tesla Model 3s or Model Ys, whatever they are, called in 5 or 10 years for the courier side of the business, because obviously saving fuel is gonna be, paramount to the business survival, right? And like I've already said, having that courier side is taking those 20-pound boxes and getting paid ridiculous amounts of money for that. Having a Tesla or a fleet of Teslas to do that would be amazing, or a Toyota hybrid or whatever other type of um, fuel saving vehicle. Um, and then sort of that 5 to 10 year answer where I said no is because I want to grow this to that point in that 5 to 10 year time span that one of the bigger companies says, "Hey, we're going to offer you this boatload of money,"
Mhm.
and I say, "Perfect," because in 10 years I'm ready to retire.
Smart.
I forget people want to retire.
Well, I basically right from the first day of writing, starting to begin the business plan, which is obviously even since day one, that business plan, as you know,
Oh, yeah.
it changes and evolves because
Yeah.
it has to. But right from day one, there's always been an exit strategy in there.
Yeah, it's like I've been following it because like in my industry, Budweiser's the big one, like Anheuser-Busch, they're investing a lot in self-driving semis. And they're like
Mhm.
one of the only companies in America that has approval to drive those things on highways. So what they're doing is like they do the highway driving, and then they have a human get in once they hit the city limits, and then they drive them the rest of the way. But they have these like
Right.
yeah, they're just for shipping beer because it's very like alcohol is very heavy to ship. Um,
Yeah. Well, and you think about too the cost savings there when a truck driver, they make well over 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
If not upwards of 200
Yeah.
grand a year. So a company like Budweiser that's got 1,000 or 5,000 trucks on the road, if suddenly, and now I hate to say it to all these truck drivers that are losing out on an income suddenly, but to the bottom line of that company, it's like, wow, that is a lot of money. If suddenly, now you're replacing that driver instead of spending 5 days on the road driving from.
We can drive 24/7 now. You don't have to do the laws where you can only drive 12 hours at a time, and you gotta take this amount of
Right.
breaks and whatnot. You can drive 24/7. You don't have to worry about I guess crashes, but you don't have to worry about human error is what I mean with crashing or whatever. They can drive through the night, they can drive whatever. And it I guess we should put tariffs on trucks so we can protect truck driving jobs. That was a joke. I like
done with tariffs.
Yeah,
No more tariffs ever again.
It's like, I guess it sucks for truck drivers, obviously, but like, come on, that's where the technology is going, right? Like, we basically already have the technology, so got to embrace it. But I think it'd be interesting to have like courier services in the cities that are just robo taxis or whatever. Like, they just like, it pulls up, pops the trunk, I put the box in, close it, it drives, pops the trunk, person takes it out. That'd be interesting.
And you see in my sort of 5 to 10 year, and I don't even have this in the business plan yet, but it's in up here part of the business plan, is like, if you had, like you said, the robo taxi as part of the courier service, or the Tesla semis as part of the delivery business, then the bigger companies are going to look at you and be like, oh, this company is worth acquiring, right?
You just change your name to loveslogistics.ai.
Yeah.
So many people have been doing that now.
Yeah, and just start talking about how, our AI courier system, you're gonna get a $17 billion exit. But
well, you know what? I haven't even set up a website yet, so I'm assuming, can you get a .ai extension?
Yeah.
That's actually might be a great idea.
Like, it's kind of a joke, but like, I'm serious. I think it'll like.
Yeah, it's kind of a joke, but I'm taking it seriously.
I think it's what is AI? It's country. What is the country code? The British Overseas Territory of Anguilla is .ai.
Oh.
I know that .tv, that's some tiny Tuvalu. Yeah,
Tuvalu. Yeah,
it's
that
like
makes sense.
50% of their GDP is the licensing that Twitch pays them for Twitch.tv.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah,
it's just so funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, because we just assigned all these country codes when the internet became a thing, and then so like now Anguilla, British Overseas Territory with .ai is now their GDP spiked because of all these registering websites there, which is like, I think that's very funny to me.
Yeah, no, okay. Wow, guys. Well, I see we're pushing 2 hours. I do kind of want to get your take on one last thing. I know I've already said one last thing 3 times.
Hey, we're happy to
I'm
chat.
sorry, because I know Willows. I know Willows. You want to go and sell some wine.
I got one last thing in me.
Okay, 51st state.
Oh God.
What, Greenland?
Definitely not us.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Greenland. Yes, Greenland will be the 51st state.
Just for the Greenland quick, I think this might cause Greenland to go independent in the next 4 years. Because apparently this is like revived the conversation of like the average person in Greenland doesn't like that they're owned by Denmark. They've done like polls, and it was like, do you want to join the United States? And it was like 20% answered yes, 20% said they want to stay how it is, and like 60% said they want independence, which I thought that was interesting. So I wonder if it's going to drive it. Like, it might be an unexpected result of what they think is going to happen.
It's bringing the conversation back, but I don't think they will in the end choose to do that, because in that this is actually a case now where Greenland is subsidized quite a lot by Denmark, right? Like, it's a real subsidization, not what Trump thinks he's doing for Canada.
Yeah, but
so I don't think
Quebec gets billions of equalization every
That
year,
is
and
true.
they want to secede.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, just because it's might be a bad idea long term. Like, I guess England leaving the EU, right?
But one thing though, also for Greenland, right, is that things like the military or everything, like Denmark takes care of all that, whereas
Yeah.
Quebec technically could have their own military or all kinds of things like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, like, who would win in a fight? Denmark's military or Quebec's National
Right.
Guard?
Yeah. So I think Greenland most likely will still choose to stay, but
It's interesting to see that the sentiment is there, and now it's like no one really talked about it until Trump kind of made it popular again.
Yeah.
But then leading into the 51st state thing, I think Canada, the sentiment is widely against. If I had to guess.
Also, I don't think Trump
it
wants
is.
it either, because Canada would not vote for Trump.
No.
Like, does every province get like a bunch of electoral votes and a senator each? Do we all get? Because we're not going to be Trump senators, right?
No.
Where Canada would impeach Trump.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah,
Well,
I don't think
it just it just wouldn't happen logistically. Like, I think back to the funniest outcome I do really think it was hilarious that Trump, to Trudeau's face, was like, I'm gonna buy Canada and make you governor, and the entire room was just like awkward laugh, like, and he's like, I'm serious. Like, I think that's hilarious. But logistically, it just doesn't. This isn't the Louisiana Purchase. Like, you know what I mean? This is a developed land with economy and
sovereign nation.
Sovereign. Yeah, it's like, well, as sovereign as we can get from England, I guess. But
for now,
I go back to my point of, I think he should focus more of his time on actual adversaries than his best friends, because he has a lot more things to worry about than Canada.
Or just on America, right? Focus on your citizens, buddy.
That too. Yeah.
I don't know. Just like, I don't know. It's like, it's giving the people that just always blame other people for their misfortunes. They're like, I'm so unlucky, whatever. And that's like, well, it's not our fault. We're great. It's Canada and Mexico's fault.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
pretty much.
So I don't. Yeah, it'll never happen.
I'm just going to give a couple of quick thoughts here. So Greenland, the entire population is only like 56 or 57,000, which is like I said, it's the size of my city, small city in Canada. So yes, it's a large landmass with a lot of natural resources, which ties into my point about Trump and Canada. Trump doesn't want Canada. Trump wants Canada's natural resources.
Yeah.
And that's sort of...
So he could start by not putting a tariff on our natural resources so that we could give it to him at a discount, which is what we've been doing for 30 years.
Which we already do anyway.
Yeah. What if I told you could buy the resources for cheaper than it would cost to mine them yourself? Like,
yeah.
Literally.
Oh, man.
So...
Oh, guys, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you all. Thank both of you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here on the Passive Income Podcast. And I hope we can do it again real soon. Shout out to Tom at Savings Captain or at Savings Tiger on X. I hope everything is okay with you. I know something came up, and we'll get Tom on here again soon. And yeah, guys, thank you all so much for being here. It's been such a lively, fun conversation we've had this morning. Anthony, welcome to Canada. Go get that maple leaf tattooed on your arm. I literally do have one tattooed on my chest.
Oh, nice.
And
that's funny.
Willows, you go sell some wine and save up your 27 cents a month to buy me a beer.
That is the top of my priority goals right now.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the opportunity.
I'm actually going to do the math on that 27 cents a month, and let's find out.
So you got to scale it for inflation, though.
So we'll call a pint worth $12 or something.
Something 14? Like that. Yeah, okay. Probably like whenever that. Yeah. Well, shout out Drunk Dividend. Shout out Shrugging Doctor Beverage Company. Shout out Maple Leaf Rubber Stamp. Shout out Loveless Logistics.
Yes. Shout out mystery business number 3 that we're not allowed to talk about yet.
Is it a business? We're excited to hear about.
Is it a business? I don't know.
We're pretty sure it is.
I don't know what in my history would make you assume that.
I'm just going out on a limb. It's a hunch.
Educated, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. 55 days, gentlemen. I can share. I got in the drafts already.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to that.
50 tweet thread minimum.
All right.
We'll definitely look forward to hearing all about that. And again, thank you guys so much. And we'll catch you around the X world.
Thank you for having us, man.